I never thought my sister's rehearsal dinner would be the place where everything unraveled. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting warm light on faces I'd known my whole life. Ashley's laugh carried across the room, bright and performative, as she gestured toward me with her champagne glass. And this is my little sister, Simmons. She works at the Justice Center, filing papers and stuff. The table chuckled politely. Someone nodded with that glazed look people get when they've stopped listening. My throat tightened, but I kept my face neutral. I'd learned that skill years ago. Then her fiancé, Russell Geordie, went completely still. His fork clattered against his plate. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might be choking. His eyes locked onto mine, wide and unblinking, searching my face like he was trying to solve a puzzle that had just rearranged itself in his mind. "Wait," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Simmons? Simmons what?" "Simmons Reyes," I said quietly. His hand gripped the edge of the table. "You're Judge Reyes?" The room went silent. Not the polite quiet of people waiting their turn to speak, but the suffocating kind where everyone knows something important just happened and no one knows what to do about it. Ashley's smile froze on her face. "What are you talking about? She files papers. She's administrative staff." Russell turned to her slowly, and I saw something in his expression I'd never seen directed at my sister before. Disbelief, disappointment, maybe even disgust. "No," he said, "she's the judge who presided over the biggest case of my career." That was the moment everything changed. Not loudly, not with shouting or drama, but completely. My name is Simmons Reyes, and for most of my life, I've been invisible in my own family. Growing up, there were always two categories in the Reyes household: Ashley and everyone else. She was 3 years older, and from the time we were children, she commanded attention the way some people command armies, effortlessly, absolutely. She was the one with the debate trophies, the scholarship offers, the college acceptance letters that made my parents cry happy tears at the kitchen table. I was the one who got good grades quietly, who read in corners, who learned early that praise in our house was a finite resource, and Ashley had claimed most of it before I'd even learned to speak in full sentences. By the time I was in high school, I'd already figured out how to be small. Not physically, but in all the ways that mattered. I learned to downplay my achievements, to mention my awards only when directly asked, to celebrate my sister's victories louder than my own. It wasn't that my parents were cruel. They loved me, but love and attention aren't always the same thing, and attention has always belonged to Ashley. When I got into law school, Ashley was graduating from business school. My acceptance letter arrived the same week she got a job offer from a Fortune 500 company. Guess which news led the conversation at Sunday dinner? When I passed the bar exam, Ashley announced her engagement to Jose Antoni, a businessman she'd been dating for 6 months. My accomplishment got a "that's wonderful, honey," before the conversation pivoted to wedding venues and guest lists. When Jose Antoni turned out to be unfaithful and the engagement imploded 6 months later, I was the one who held Ashley while she cried. I took time off for my clerkship to be there for her. I never once said, "I told you so," even though I'd had reservations about him from the beginning. And when I was appointed to the bench at 32, the youngest judge in our district in 15 years, Ashley was recovering from her breakup and planning her comeback. My parents suggested we save the celebration for when Ashley was feeling better. I never brought it up again. Instead, I let them believe what they wanted to believe. When they asked about work, I said, "It's good," and changed the subject. When relatives asked what I did, I said I work at the Justice Center and let them draw their own conclusions. It was easier that way. Easier than watching my mother's face tighten when I talked about my cases. Easier than sensing my father's discomfort when I explained a complex ruling. Easier than feeling Ashley's silent resentment radiate across the table. The only person who knew the truth was my cousin Jennifer. She'd been at my swearing-in ceremony, one of 12 people in attendance. My parents had been too busy with Ashley's crisis. Jennifer squeezed my hand that day and whispered, "They're going to regret this, you know that, right?" I didn't believe her then. 3 years passed. I handled cases ranging from civil disputes to criminal proceedings. I wrote opinions that were cited in appellate briefs. I earned a reputation for being fair, thorough, and unshakable under pressure. And at family gatherings, I was still Simmons, who works at the Justice Center. Then Ashley met Russell Jordy.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. We see every single comment, and it means the world to us. Thank you so much for your support. Now, back to the story.
Russell was different from Jose and Tony in every way that mattered to my family. Where Jose had been flashy and loud, Russell was refined and measured. He was a corporate attorney at one of the city's most prestigious firms, the kind of place with marble lobbies and its name on the side of buildings. Ashley met him at a networking event and was engaged within a year. This time, my parents approved wholeheartedly. Russell had the right pedigree, the right connections, the right trajectory. I met him twice before the rehearsal dinner, once at a brief family lunch where Ashley did most of the talking, and once at their engagement party where I spent most of the evening helping my mother coordinate catering. Both times, Russell was polite but distant. He shook my hand, asked the standard questions about where I worked, nodded when I gave my standard vague answers. I was just Ashley's little sister, after all, part of the package, not particularly important. I didn't recognize him. Why would I? I see dozens of attorneys every month. Most of them blur together after a while, especially when they're standing in my courtroom wearing the invisible armor of assumed superiority. The rehearsal dinner was held at Bellamy's, an upscale restaurant with the kind of ambiance that costs extra. Ashley had planned everything, down to the placement of the centerpieces. She'd even created a seating chart that put me at the far end of the table between my Uncle Morris and Aunt Sheila, who both were hard of hearing and spent most dinners shouting at each other. I arrived on time, wearing a simple black dress that wouldn't draw attention. I'd learned that trick, too. Ashley wore emerald green and sparkled like a firework. The cocktail hour was exactly what I'd expected. Ashley held court, showing off her ring, talking about the wedding plans, accepting compliments like they were her birthright. Russell stood beside her, smiling, playing his role perfectly. I stood near the bar, nursing a glass of wine, talking to Jennifer about nothing in particular. "You look tired," Jennifer said, studying my face. "Long week," I replied. "You had that sentencing hearing, didn't you? The one with the environmental violations?" I nodded. 3 days of testimony. The defendant kept trying to argue that dumping chemicals in the river was cost-effective waste management. Jennifer snorted. "And people wonder why we need judges?" "They don't wonder. They just don't think about it," I said quietly. She looked like she wanted to say more, but then Ashley called everyone to the table and the moment passed. Dinner started smoothly enough. Toasts were made, stories were told. Ashley glowed at the head of the table, Russell beside her, my parents beaming with pride. I picked at my salmon and listened to my Uncle Morris explain in length about his new fishing boat. Aunt Sheila interrupted every third sentence to correct him. It was oddly peaceful in its predictability. Then Russell's boss arrived late, apologizing profusely for being held up in traffic. His name was Richard something, a senior partner who looked exactly like you'd expect. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of confident smile that comes from never being told no. Russell stood to greet him, and Ashley used the opportunity to command the table's attention again. "Since everyone's here now," she stood and raised her glass, "I want to say something." The table quieted immediately. Ashley had that effect on people. "Russell and I are so grateful to have you all here. Family means everything to us, and I'm especially grateful for my little sister, Simmons." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. It was the one she used when she was about to position herself as generous while simultaneously putting someone else in their place. Simmons has always been there for me, Ashley continued, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. She's so dependable, so steady. While I was out building my career, climbing ladders, making moves, Simmons found her little niche at the Justice Center, filing papers, keeping things organized. It's not glamorous, but someone has to do it, right? A few people chuckled nervously. My mother looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My father focused very intently on his wine glass. I mean, not everyone can be in the spotlight, Ashley went on, warming to her theme. Some people are just more comfortable in the background, and that's okay. Simmons is great at what she does. Very reliable. Very supportive. She said supportive like it was a consolation prize. Russell's boss, Richard, smiled indulgently. Well, every successful person needs a strong support system. It sounds like you're lucky to have such a dedicated sister. The condescension in his voice made my jaw clench. Jennifer, beside me, had gone very still. I could feel her anger radiating outward like heat. Exactly, Ashley said, sitting back down and reaching for Russell's hand. I've always been the ambitious one, the one pushing boundaries, but Simmons is happy where she is. She's never been the type to want more than she has. She's just content. Content. Like it was a limitation, like it was settling. I felt the familiar burn in my chest, the one I'd learned to breathe through. I looked down at my plate and told myself it didn't matter. This was Ashley's night. Let her have it. Let her feel big. But then Russell's boss turned to me, that same indulgent smile still in place. And what exactly do you do at the Justice Center, Simmons? Administrative assistant? Court clerk? Before I could answer, Ashley laughed. Oh, she files paperwork mostly, scheduling, that kind of thing. It's steady work, good benefits. The table was silent now, but not in the way it had been for Ashley's toast. This silence was awkward, painful. People shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. That's when Russell spoke, his voice cutting through the discomfort. Ashley, he said carefully, what did you just say Simmons does? I told you. She works in administration at the Justice Center. Why? Russell had gone very pale. He set down his fork with exaggerated precision, like he was afraid any sudden movement might shatter something fragile. Simmons Reyes, he said, turning to face me directly. What's your last name? Reyes, I said quietly. Simmons Reyes, he repeated, his voice hollow. And you work at the district courthouse on 5th and Madison? Yes. His hands were shaking now. In what capacity? I met his eyes. I could have kept lying, could have nodded along with Ashley's version, could have stayed small. I'm a judge, I said. The silence that followed was absolute. Ashley's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, anger, fear. She let out a sharp laugh that died as soon as it left her lips. That's not funny, she said. I'm not joking, I replied calmly. Russell had pressed his hands flat against the table like he needed to steady himself. Judge Simmons Reyes, he said slowly, you presided over the Meridian Tech case 18 months ago. Breach of contract, intellectual property theft. I was second chair. I remember the case. I remembered him too, now that I was really looking at him. He'd been competent, well prepared. He'd deferred to the lead attorney on most arguments, but his brief work was solid. I remember, I said. You ruled in our favor, Russell continued, his voice gaining strength. But you didn't just rule. You wrote a 30-page opinion that completely restructured how IP disputes are handled in this district. Law schools are teaching your opinion now. It's cited in textbooks. Ashley's face had gone white. That's impossible. She's my sister. I would know if she was a judge. Would you? Russell asked, turning to her. The question wasn't rhetorical. My mother finally found her voice. Simmons, what is he talking about? I set down my napkin, taking my time. Years of court training had taught me the power of controlled silence. I was appointed to the bench 3 years ago. District Court, Civil Division. I handle complex commercial litigation, environmental cases, and civil rights disputes. 3 years? My father repeated numbly. You've been a judge for 3 years? Yes. And you never told us? I looked at him directly. I did tell you. on Sunday dinner, the same week Ashley announced her engagement to Jose Antoni. You said, "That's nice, honey," and then spent the next 2 hours discussing wedding photographers. The table had erupted in whispered conversations. My uncle was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. My aunt had tears in her eyes for reasons I couldn't identify. But Ashley was the loudest. "You let everyone believe you were an administrator," she hissed, her voice shaking. "You stood there at family dinners, at parties, at gatherings, and you let us all think you were just filing papers." I corrected people at first. For the first 6 months, I tried to explain, but every time I did, you changed the subject, or Mom would get this tight look on her face, or Dad would suddenly remember something urgent to discuss. So I stopped correcting. I let you believe what you wanted to believe. "That's manipulative," Ashley snapped. "No, that's self-preservation." She whirled on him. "Excuse me?" "Ashley," he said, and there was something new in his voice, something that wasn't there before. "The way you just spoke about your sister in front of everyone, you weren't just being dismissive, you were being cruel." "I was joking." "No," Russell interrupted, "you weren't, and I've heard you talk about her like this before. I just didn't realize." He trailed off, looking at me with something close to horror. "I stood in your courtroom. I argued a case in front of you. You were brilliant. You were fair. You asked questions that made our lead attorney rethink his entire strategy. And the whole time, I had no idea you were Ashley's sister." "Why would you?" I asked. "We have different last names. You never asked about my work beyond the bare minimum, and Ashley never talks about me unless she's using me as a contrast to make herself look better." The accusation hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. "How dare you? How dare you make me look like the villain at my own rehearsal dinner?" "I didn't make you look like anything," I said, looking directly at her. "I just answered a question honestly." Russell's boss, Richard, who had been silent throughout this exchange, suddenly cleared his throat. "Judge Reyes," he said, his entire demeanor transformed from condescending to respectful. "I apologize. I didn't realize—" "Most people don't," I said simply. "Your opinion on the Meridian case was exceptional. We've used it as a template for 3 subsequent cases. You have a gift for cutting through noise and identifying the core legal issue." "Thank you." Ashley made a strangled sound. "This is unbelievable. You're all just, what, acting like she's some kind of hero? She lied to us for years?" "I never lied," I said, looking directly at her. "I just stopped trying to make you hear me." The rest of the dinner dissolved into chaos. My mother kept saying, "I don't understand," over and over. My father sat in stunned silence, his face unreadable. Jennifer squeezed my hand under the table hard enough to hurt, like she was trying to anchor me. Ashley left the table abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Russell hesitated, looking between us, before following her. I stayed seated, my hands folded in my lap, my heartbeat surprisingly calm. Russell's boss approached me before he left. "Judge Reyes, I hope you'll forgive my earlier presumption. I would be honored to have lunch with you sometime to discuss your work, if you're amenable." "Thank you. I will consider it." After he left, the table began to empty. People made excuses, suddenly remembering early mornings or long drives home. Within 20 minutes, only Jennifer, my parents, and I remained. My mother looked at me with wet eyes. "Why didn't you make us listen?" "I tried," I said. "For 6 months, I tried. But you were all so focused on Ashley's recovery from Jose Antoni, on making sure she was okay, that there wasn't room for anything else. And after a while, I realized it wasn't about being heard, it was about being seen. And you didn't want to see me as anything other than Ashley's supporting character." "That's not fair," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" I asked gently. "When's the last time you asked me about my work, really asked, not just made polite conversation?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. "I'm proud of what I do. I'm good at it. I make decisions that affect people's lives, that shape law, that matter. But I learned a long time ago that my accomplishments made everyone uncomfortable. They shifted the balance. They meant Ashley wasn't the only successful one, and that was intolerable." "We never meant—" my mother started. "I know. That's what makes it worse. You didn't mean to. It just happened. And I made it easy by disappearing." Jennifer stood. "I'm taking you home," she said firmly. I nodded, grateful. As we walked out, I saw Ashley and Russell standing near the entrance, deep in conversation. Ashley's face was blotchy from crying. Russell looked like someone who just watched the ground open up beneath him. He looked up as we passed, and our eyes met. "Judge Reyes," he said formally, "thank you for your honesty tonight." I nodded and kept walking. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. My mother, "We need to talk, please call me." My father, "I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say, but I'm sorry." My uncle, "Why didn't you tell us? We would have been so proud." My aunt, "You should have said something. We had a right to know." Jennifer, "How are you holding up?" And then, unexpectedly, Russell. "This is Russell Jordy. I hope it's okay that I got your number from Ashley's phone. I need to speak with you. Not about the wedding, about something else. Please." I stared at that message for a long time before responding. "My chambers. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone."
If you're enjoying this story so far, please take just 1 second to drop a like and leave a comment. It really helps us keep creating these stories for you, and we genuinely appreciate every single one of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, let's get back to Russell.
Russell arrived at exactly 2 p.m., wearing a different suit than the night before, but the same shell-shocked expression. My clerk showed him in. My chambers were smaller than most people expected, lined with legal texts and case files. I gestured for him to sit in one of the chairs across from my desk. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "You have 15 minutes, I replied. "I have a motion hearing at 2:30. He nodded, gathering himself. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you respond." I waited. "I'm calling off the wedding," he said. That surprised me. "That's not my business." "It is, actually," he said, "because it's about how Ashley treats you, how your whole family treats you, and I can't unsee it now." He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "Last night, after we left the restaurant, Ashley spent 2 hours trying to convince me that you'd manipulated everyone, that you'd deliberately hidden your career to make her look bad, that you'd staged the whole revelation to ruin her rehearsal dinner." "And what do you think?" I asked. "I think," he said slowly, "that I've been watching you both for a year now, and in that entire time, you've never once drawn attention to yourself. You've never competed. You've never contradicted her. You've just disappeared. And last night, when forced to either keep disappearing or tell the truth, you chose the truth. Not dramatically, not vindictively, just honestly." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "And Ashley couldn't handle it, not because you embarrassed her, but because for the first time, she wasn't the center of attention, and that revealed something about her character that I can't ignore." "Russell," I said carefully, "you shouldn't make life decisions based on one dinner. It's not one dinner. It's a pattern I didn't want to see. The way she talks about people when they're not in the room. The way she positions herself as the victim when things don't go her way. The way she's built her entire identity on being better than everyone else, including her own sister." He met my eyes. "I stood in your courtroom. I watched you handle lawyers who tried to bully you. I watched you dissect arguments that took weeks to build, finding the weaknesses in minutes. I watched you treat everyone with the same level of respect, from the senior partners to the first-year associates. And then I went home to Ashley and listened to her mock you for filing papers." "She didn't know," I said. "Does that make it better?" he asked. "That she felt comfortable mocking you without even bothering to know the truth?" I didn't answer. "I came here to apologize," Russell said, "and to tell you that I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I participated in it, even passively. And I'm sorry that your family has treated you like you're less than what you are." "Thank you," I said quietly. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Judge Reyes, that Meridian opinion changed my career. The way you structured the analysis, the way you balanced competing interests without losing sight of the core principles. I've modeled every brief I've written since then on that framework." "I'm glad it helped," I said. "It did more than help," he said. "It raised the bar for what I thought possible. You're an extraordinary judge. Your family should be proud of you." After he left, I sat in my chambers for a long time, staring at the case files on my desk. The truth was, I'd stopped hoping for my family's pride years ago. I'd learned to find validation in my work, in the opinions I wrote, in the attorneys who came back better prepared because I'd challenged them. But hearing it said out loud by someone who understood what the work actually meant cracked something open inside me that I'd thought was permanently sealed. The wedding didn't happen. Ashley called it off 2 days after the rehearsal dinner. According to family gossip, filtered through Jennifer, who was the only person I was speaking to, Ashley told everyone that Russell had changed and wasn't the man she thought he was. My parents tried to place blame carefully, not quite accusing me, but not quite defending me either. The phrase, unfortunate timing, was used a lot. Russell sent me a brief email. Thank you for your honesty, even when it was difficult. I hope the wedding fallout hasn't affected you too negatively. I'm handling it on my end. Also, I've enclosed a brief we're filing next week in a case that might end up in your court. If it does, I promise I'll be better prepared than I was for Meridian. Respectfully, Russell Jordy. I smiled despite myself. 3 weeks after the rehearsal dinner, my mother showed up at my chambers unannounced. My clerk was uncertain, but I let her in. She sat in the same chair Russell had occupied, looking smaller than I remembered. I've been thinking, she said without preamble, about us, not seeing you. I waited. You were right, she continued, her voice breaking. We didn't see you. We didn't even try, and I don't know how to apologize for that. I don't know how to give you back the years of celebration you deserved. You can't, I said gently. They're gone. She flinched like I'd struck her. But, I continued, you can start now. You can choose to see me now. How? She asked desperately. How do I do that? Ask me about my work. Actually listen when I answer. Stop comparing me to Ashley. Stop treating my accomplishments like they're threats to her. Just see me as I am. What if I don't know how? She whispered. Then learn, I said, the same way you learned to see Ashley. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Simmons. I'm so sorry I made you feel like you had to be small. I know, I said. We didn't hug, we weren't there yet, but when she left, something had shifted, just slightly. Ashley didn't speak to me for 6 months. When she finally called, her voice was different, quieter, less certain. I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen. Okay. I was scared of you, she said. All my life, I was scared that if you shined too bright, no one would look at me. And I know how that sounds. I know how awful that is. But it's the truth. She took a shaky breath. When Mom and Dad focused on me, when they celebrated my achievements, I felt real. I felt valuable. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that if they celebrated you too, it would diminish what I had, like there was only so much pride to go around. Ashley, I said, let me finish, please. I went quiet. What I did at the rehearsal dinner was inexcusable, she continued. I didn't just dismiss you. I tried to humiliate you, to keep you small in front of everyone, including Russell, because some part of me was terrified that if people knew the truth, they'd realize you were more than me, better than me. I'm not better than you, I said. You are, she said simply. You're kinder, you're more patient, you're brilliant in ways I never understood because I never bothered to look. And when Russell called off the wedding, my first instinct was to blame you, to make you the villain, because that was easier than admitting I'd been the villain all along. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see how I treated you. And I'm so, so sorry. I sat with that for a long moment, staring out my window at the city below. The truth was, I'm not ready to forgive you yet, I said honestly. Maybe someday, but not yet. I understand, she whispered. But, I continued, I'm willing to try, to see if we can build something different, something honest. Thank you, she breathed. A year later, I was presiding over a high-profile environmental case when I saw my parents slip into the back of the courtroom. They'd never come to watch me work before. After I adjourned for the day, they waited by the door. My father's eyes were red. That was... started. I had no idea. I had no idea what you did, what you were capable of. I tried to tell you, I said, but not unkindly. I know, he said, and I'm sorry we didn't listen. My mother reached for my hand. Can we take you to dinner? To celebrate? Celebrate what? You, she said simply. I looked at them both, these people who'd raised me and failed me, and now were finally trying to see me. Okay, dinner. I used to think staying quiet was the same as keeping the peace. I was wrong. Silence didn't protect anyone. It just taught people that they could shrink me down to whatever size made them comfortable. It taught me that being small was safer than being seen. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself. Not your family, not your friends, not anyone who benefits from your invisibility. The night of Ashley's rehearsal dinner, I made a choice. Not to be vindictive, not to be dramatic, just not to lie by omission, to stop protecting people from the truth of who I am. And yes, it shattered things. Yes, it hurt. Yes, there were consequences. But it also set me free. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't asking permission to take up space. I wasn't apologizing for my achievements. I wasn't making myself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. I was just being exactly who I am. Judge Simmons Reyes. Brilliant, fair, unapologetic. And that, it turns out, was enough. If you've ever hidden your light to keep someone else comfortable, if you've ever made yourself small to keep the peace, if you've ever wondered if you're allowed to take up space in your own life, let this be your permission. You are allowed. You are allowed the entire time. Share your story in the comments, and if this resonated with you, hit subscribe. You deserve to be seen.